everybody, and welcome to the Irocknits Podcast. I do have an interview for you today, but before that, I'm just going to jump on here because I have a couple of things to show. I have a new pattern coming out for the dumpling bag series, so here are all the dumpling bags starting in June, July, August, September, October, and November. And this is the twice-sheared sheep dumpling bag, but the December dumpling bag is coming out this week. I believe it will be up by December 5th. This is a collaboration with Mustache Yarn. And if you know me at all, you know that I designed the Churchill Avenue hat and mittens. I'll have a picture in here of what those look like several years ago because I grew up living on Churchill Avenue in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where many of the neighborhoods are decorated by theme, and all of the neighbors around my 4 blocks had churches with stained glass windows in front of each of the house, little steepled churches. I'll also have a picture in of that. So I decided, since I had done that collaboration with Stacy of Mustache Yarns years ago to use her yarn for the mittens and the hat, that we should also have a dumpling bag. But in order to kind of keep people interested, I also have a larger size. So once again, casting on for the base, picking up and just working in the round. This is 2 by 2, 2 white, 2 color, 2 white, 2 color. And then you have this casing at the top that you make with a drawstring. And here is the larger version. So I cast on using the color on the bottom of this one, and I have a larger felted purse liner on the inside of this one. So I'll hold them up side by side. This is the normal size, which is a 5 by 8 bottom, and this is the larger size. It can hold so much more, much bigger project. And then I used a shoestring as the drawstring for this bag. This bag is using a colorway called Rainbow, and these are the snowy streets with the Christmas lights. This colorway is the snowy streets with the Noel colorway from her, but I also think it could go for just about anything. You can use any variegated yarn, or you could even use a semi-solid to make these stripes. It would just give it a completely different look. But her Noel colorway is kind of a softer rainbow pastel palette. On the outside of the bag, I did the cream. I kept going with the cream, but on the inside of the casing, I did the color. And I did the same on this one. And then I just bind off. I do my 3-needle bind off at the top of the casing with that one. So both patterns are going to be available in one called the Churchill Avenue Dumpling Bag. And that will be coming out in her newsletter on Black Friday. And then I will get it out as soon as I can. It is Thanksgiving weekend. I do have company coming, a lot of company, and I needed to get the pictures taken and get them sent to my tech editor who lays out my pattern. So I also am not going to try to put any pressure on her, but as soon as I get it back, I'll put it up. If you are a dumpling bag devotee, you already have all. Each month, a new one will come out through next May. So there will be 12 total bags, and then the specialty bag that came out with twice sheared sheep. I also wanted to let everybody know that I did a reprint of my Knit Words book, the soft cover. When I go to teach, I always have people ask if they can still purchase both of the books that I've done, and the Minnesota 52 book is out of print. But this one is still available, and I just got a whole nother shipment of books from my dear friend Amber, who did all the photography for this during the pandemic for me, and her daughter Heidi and her friends, her niece and their friend. And so I did order another shipment of these. So if you want the soft color cover book, you can still get that on my website. The cost is $20, and you get all 8 patterns. And a PDF download code is included in the front cover here so that you can have it on Ravelry if you like. So I don't always have these in stock. I just finally did another printing of all of those. I think I'll save the rest of like what I've been watching and the books I've been reading. We had a really small group for Knit Night this month for my Patreons, but it was lovely to chat, and I love just sitting and knitting in the evening. And you all know I'm a talker, so it was really lovely to chat with those gals, Rachel and Anne. Do I have that right? But this month we will be having our book club, and we're reading the book Tilt. Very short 6-hour book that I listened to on audio a few months ago, and it has still stuck with me. It's just a fascinating story about one 24-hour period in the life of a catastrophe in environmental catastrophe in Oregon. It's just, I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about, which will be really fun. I am wearing my Maze shawl. This has a cabled edge at the top, and then it has a little cabled center point right here. The rest of it is worked from end to end. I can take it off here. It is worked from end to end this way. Starting here, we work our way down, and then we pick up along this edge to do this ribbed edge. So we go over and back with a little cable cross here until we get halfway, and then we work our way down and pick that up later. It's just lovely. The ends are very thin, so very easy to wrap around yourself as you go out the door. And I do like that you get that little cabled edge up around your neck. And I just flip this out so that it shows, right? Pretty fun, easy to wear. I did put tassels on mine. I love the weight of that under my coats, and we were out running a couple of errands before Thanksgiving tomorrow. We are not celebrating until Friday with Kylie and Stevie, my daughter and her husband, but my mom is coming. So my sister-in-law is coming up to see her son who lives here in the Twin Cities, and she's bringing her daughter, and they're going to go shopping. And so mom is going to ride along and come up and stay for a couple of days with me. So I'm really looking forward to that. One more thing, I've been doing a little shopping on Instagram. Has anybody else been suckered into one of those ads? But look at the pictures I got for my bathroom. This is my Chevy. You send them a picture of your dog, and they make these little photos. And they're on foam core. You can pick how you want them. You can get them framed or not. And then they just have a little like Post-it note sticker on the back. So it peels off and just sticks up, and you can just peel them back off again. Weighs absolutely nothing. I think they're so cute. It's called Mix Tiles, Mixtiles. They had 6 different designs to choose from. And you can have them in an office setting, your dog in an office setting. You can have your dog, and I'm not sponsored in any way. They have lots of choices. They have holiday ones that you can have your dog. This is when he was a pup. Oh, I just love them. I just thought it was so cute. So I'm going to put these in our bathroom. They'll make me smile every day. I just think this one is so good. And they weren't super expensive. I think I got all of these made up and shipped for $50, something like that. Like a custom, you know, it's very nice quality. It's on this foam cut to fit. That's just lovely. So I thought I would share those because I haven't hung them up yet because they just came. So I ordered my pies this year. I'm not making the pies. We ordered a berry triple berry pie and a chocolate peanut butter cup pie. Peanut butter cup's my son-in-law's favorite, and I love that chocolate peanut butter cup pie. So we ordered 2 of those. And then I ordered my date-filled cookies, which I've talked about in the past. So every year at the holidays, our local Cub Foods, which is our grocery store, does, in their bakery, you can order these date-filled cookies. And my mom made them growing up, and she would make pinwheels, or she would make fold-over cookies. But the fold-over cookies are so labor intensive, and they make them. This is the softest sugar cookie dough, and it just has the date filling. It's got dates and sugar in there. Delicious. delicious, so good. And they make them. So Mom called and she said, "Are you getting day cookies?" And I said, "Of course." And she said, "Order me a dozen." And I said, "Okay." She and my dad and I are the only ones that ever probably eat them. I want to wish you all just a very happy Thanksgiving, going into our busiest time of year, right? Everybody gets crazy around the holidays. And so let's take our knitting with us and just try to be calm and have an enjoyable season of joy and Thanksgiving here. I will talk to you all later. And the interview with Cheryl is coming up next. Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 187 of the Irocknits Podcast. And I have a dear friend guest today. I met Cheryl Lampard in Pennsylvania 2 years ago at Yarn Fest when I was teaching in a class, and we had an amazing time together. We were kind of soulmates. We were just laughing and having a really good time. And look at us. We've got my hair's not spiky today because I was out in the wind, and we've got the fun glasses, and she's a fashion diva. And so I was like, let's get together. So the next year we went to dinner. And now Cheryl is a teacher and has owned a yarn store in the UK. And as soon as I allow her to talk, you'll notice that. But welcome, Cheryl. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you, Cori. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. It really is.
Yeah, we have become internet friends, kind of.
We have.
Interesting. We've been together in person twice. We went to dinner, and then I suggested that she also start teaching. She's got a very interesting journey of teaching online during COVID. So why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about when you learned to knit and your previous time before you moved to the US?
Sure. And I'm sure you're the same here, but I can't actually remember learning to knit. It was almost as if it was in my DNA. I had a grandmother that knitted, a mother that knitted, and I was around fiber and fabrics all the time. So I do remember I can have a visualization of myself at about age 5, trying to do something on the needles. I guess I was bought one of those little kiddie kits, to have a go with. And I just don't remember ever learning. I mean, obviously I did learn, but it was grandmother and my mother that taught me, and I was addicted to it, from a very early age. So
but that would have been when you were living in the UK, correct?
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, I didn't move to the US until 2008, although I'd been coming here because I met my husband to be then in the UK, and then we had this transatlantic relationship. And so when we got married, when we got engaged, I thought, well, one of us, we probably better be on the same continent if we're going to make this work. So that's what happened.
So did you then knit things as a child and as a teenager and wear them, or were you just a side knitter, occasional knitter when you were young?
All the time. I mean, everybody or everything. And if we didn't have a dog, but if we'd have had one, the dog would have been wearing something I'd have knitted. Everybody got something, whether they wanted it or not. And I loved it. And just shopping for yarn was a real thrill. And I loved it. I mean, my grandmother still knitted great things for me, and I sort of learned from her a great deal. Whereas I probably learned more sewing from my mother, but certainly my mother was there to help me out if I ran into problems. But if I may tell you one funny story, I remember knitting my dad when I was about 11. Knitted ties were very cool and trendy. And he had mentioned that he might like one. So I knitted this fine fingering weight tie, and it was just a straight tie with a very narrow back. And it took ages to do because it was in seed stitch and the back was slightly different. Anyway, I knitted this thing and it seemed like I was knitting it forever. And he, of course, made all the right noises when I gave it to him. He was thrilled to bits, and off he went to work one day wearing it. And it didn't dawn on me until some time later that I'd only seen him wear it once. And when I questioned him, he said, well, the back, where it got thinner to go around the neck, and then the the back piece was sort of 3 times as long as the front for some reason. I don't know what I'd done. So he had to wear the long piece sort of tucked into his trouser leg. So it wasn't the most comfortable tie to wear. But I said, well, why didn't you tell me? I could have unraveled some of it. And he said, oh, I didn't want to upset you because I knew how long it had taken you to do. But yeah, that was the story of my dad's knitted tie.
And then you early on went to college and or you did something in business before you owned the yarn store. I don't
Yes,
tell me.
yes, I sort of I went to well, I actually went to secretarial college. That's what it was. That's what we had at the time in
Yep,
the
yep.
UK. And I was a my shorthand was pretty fast, and so was my typing. And so I had a I won't call those a career path, but that those were jobs that I
Yeah.
had. And so yeah, secretarial college was I would never knock it because it was a great grounding for me, and it gave me an income,
Yeah.
throughout my life. So I would never knock it. And I met some great people on the way. But
That's what I remember you telling me is
yes,
that you were a very independent woman and could do what you wanted because you had an income that you could
yeah,
rely on and you could be just on your own.
yeah. So yeah, and so it was a very important factor, and I'm very grateful that I did do that. But I always had a longing to sort of be somewhere in fashion or um, I started working for a company called Tyrac, and they made silk ties, but they were very clever. They were in the Guinness Book of Records at one point for having selling the most. They got the most revenue for the square footage because what they did, and I hope this resonates in the US, but London and mainline stations, the UK has a very good train network,
Yeah.
and people rely on it through to get to
Yes.
work, to visit, whatever. And certainly the big city stations, there were always little kiosk shops. It might have been a tobacconist or a newsagent at one point, but now you had these odd shaped little kiosks. But Tyrac worked out that you could fit in a lot of ties in a short, a
Oh,
small area. And it was perfect because guys would come into London or Leeds or Scotland, wherever they might travel to and from. They might have had a coffee. Oh, spilt the coffee on their tie. Oh, need a new tie before they get to the office. So that was a huge thing. Anyway, I went to work for the head office again as the executive assistant, actually, to the MD at the time. And I thought it was so exciting. They were franchising like crazy, and it was such an exciting time to be part of it. And as I worked there, I kind of thought, um, maybe I could go into retail. I kind of like this. Anyway, a long story short, I spoke to one of the franchisees who um, he actually ended up being my husband, as it turned out. But I, but not at the time. But uh, I spoke to one of the franchisees because he said, "Well, you're very creative. I get the feeling you're very creative. Why don't you? Is this what you want to do?" I said, "No, I would love to open a yarn store. I'm a big knitter, and the thing is with yarn stores, a lot of people have a completely different view of them as to fabric stores. Fabric stores are sort of cool and trendy, and yarn stores aren't always. And at that time, they weren't. I said, so I would love to open a yarn store, but I really don't know how to go about it. And I would get overwhelmed by it. And he said to me, and I've never forgotten it. He said to me, why don't you just phone 5 of the biggest spinners in the UK and they will send you tickets to come to the big yarn fairs every year. And there was always one in the sort of the north of England every year, a huge one. Um, and he said they will welcome you with open arms if you're thinking of opening a yarn store. So just see what's out there. And that's what I did. And literally everything after that was bite-sized chunks for me. And yeah, that was really where I started. It was just somebody saying to me, break it down into bite-sized chunks. Start with contacting the 5 biggest spinners and see go from there. And
Yeah.
that's literally, otherwise, if he hadn't have told me that, I don't even know if I would have done that, So
So when was this? What year? And where did you open? And what was the name of the store?
right. So this is going to date me, but okay. It was
We're all older here. It's fine.
Yeah. So this was 1987. And I mean, I started thinking about it in 1986. It took a year to get it off the ground and open it. So it's 1987, and it was a seaside town called Brighton, which is a very sort of contemporary town, and it had earned a reputation for being, a little bit edgy. And it was one of the first seaside towns that the Victorians built a railroad to. So the wealthy of the day back in Victorian times could go down to Brighton and take the waters. And in fact, there's a famous Brighton Pavilion, which is a very quirky looking building that was really just not far away from where my store was. So a lot of it's, and I forget which George I should know my British history, but I think it was the son of the King George, who was known as the Mad King George because he had a disease. But unlike his father, the son was a bit of a wastrel and a womanizer, so he spent a lot of money and on the Brighton Pavilion being one. And but anyway, the pavilion remains. So it's a very kind of quirky, contemporary, edgy town. Lots of tourists, lots of people that live there, and a fun place to be. So it was the perfect place, really, to open a yarn store.
And so, did you have to move there?
Yes, I did. Yes, I sold my little apartment in London, and I moved there. And
so, how far away was it from where you had been living?
Kind of 50 miles, I guess. Okay. 50 miles.
Yeah. Okay.
But very doable. I mean, very doable. Yeah.
Yeah. But different. I mean, you had to uproot yourself.
I did.
Find a place to live. And did you find the shop space first and then decide that that's where you're going to have it, kind of?
I once I'd sort of honed in that Brighton would be a good place. I can remember spending many days in Brighton, sitting in a coffee shop or sitting in various coffee shops, just literally counting the footfall of people, how many people went by, and did they go down this road to shop, or did they just use it as a cut through?
Right.
Because it's one thing to have tons of people walking by, but if they don't stop and shop,
right.
And so I opened in a place. It was called the Lanes, the North Lanes, actually. But it was a good sort of, a lot of people did walk through it, but again, they walk through it and they see different things. Or a lot of people came down from the station. So it was a good place to open a shop. And at weekends it was super busy, which was really nice.
Yeah. And what did you call it?
It was called Yomo, which is Yomo. But it actually means, it's Japanese for wool, and the actual translation is hair of the sheep. So yeah,
I remember you telling me. I couldn't remember the name, but I remember you telling me that. So you had the shop for a number of years, and you knit amazing things back in that era that new knitters today wouldn't recognize, but I did. Like, you sent me photos of your windows and things that you had knitted, beautiful intarsia sweaters and things that were just so ahead of the time. For a lot of knitters, were knitting things that were definitely fancier than what we knit now.
Right. Yes.
That's probably not the right word.
No, I know what fancier,
but like we just knit a lot of top-down raglan sweaters that are sweatshirty, and things have changed. But the things that you sent me, which I had shared on the podcast after the Yarn Fest, a few of the photos after at the end of the podcast, I said I would put those in, but you had shared some really extraordinary knitting. So tell us about a couple of those things that you had shared with me.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for saying that, Corey. I think the thing was, it was as much as anything, although knitting had become cool again, and the Diana, Princess of Wales, had done a lot to help with that, whether she knew it or not. I mean, she wore the famous black sheep sweater, which
Yeah,
everybody wanted.
yeah,
And when she was pregnant with Prince William, um, she wore this sweater with a kangaroo, intarsia kangaroo on it. With no royal had done that before, certainly not in public. So, and she was, everybody, well, I thought she was
yeah,
fantastic, and her
yeah,
sense of style was wonderful. So, what she wore, people wanted. So I think that really helped drive that whole thing for picture sweaters and whatever they might be. I mean, the saving grace in some ways, but I kept the silhouettes really simple,
yeah,
because if you've got a lot going on here, you don't want a fancy silhouette.
yeah, yeah,
And it was the style as well. So it was not necessarily a drop shoulder, but some of them were slightly
yeah,
dropped, or just very simple shapes and quite boxy. So you could actually really work on the
yeah.
pictures. And of course we didn't have computers then to plot things out. So I used to use ratio graph paper, the knitter's
Yeah.
graph paper, and colored pencils.
Me
And
too. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, me too.
yeah,
I still have graph paper in my
I do
drawer.
too. I do.
Today, a knitter would be like, "What are you talking about?"
So
Uh,
I used to sort of come up with a design. And my father was very good. He should have perhaps been a graphic artist in a different life, but I would say to him, Dad, can you kind of get this bigger? This is and he had, I forget what he called it, some kind of device where you could sort of trace it around and the thing would scale up. I mean, now you could just input that in a piece of software, but he would be happy to do that. So he would, when I came up with designs, he would just a pentagraph, or I forget what it was called, but anyway, he would sort of scale them up for me, if I needed them enlarged. And we had, so yeah, I just sort of got inspiration from all sorts of things. So I would go to museums at the weekend and look at the fabrics and look at designs from maybe wallpaper, and take a little bit from that, not literally take a bit, but the
no,
concept of
yeah,
that element. Oh, that would be a nice flower to put on a sweater, or oh, that would
yeah,
be interesting. And yeah, so I love to do it. The trouble, I think, was it was just a slow process, because it was all by hand, and then had to type up the pattern on a typewriter.
uh,
But there's
I know.
downtime in
And then
a
we
shop.
had to copy them off.
Oh yeah,
We
yeah,
had to copy them off or put them in a sleeve and take a picture and put the little picture on. I mean, that's how I started.
yes.
Was just like doing that, and that that went on for years. That there
Yeah.
was no such thing as a PDF, right?
No,
Like
no, there wasn't. No,
my
no.
tech editor is still amazed at a lot of the handwriting that I do ahead of time, because that is kind of how I was trained into it,
Yeah,
and my mom had taught me how to sew, and we had modified patterns and things,
yeah,
but it was all taking it in here and letting it out there and making things fit that
totally.
way. So
Yep,
yeah,
yep,
completely.
yeah.
um and did you have like a community of people then that really were knitting a lot and shopping at your store, like regular customers? And I
Yes.
don't know enough about the yarn stores in the day, um, and if they were doing things like knit nights and getting together like they do now.
That's a really good question. I don't remember there being many yarn stores that did knit nights.
Yeah,
There may have been, yeah, I don't recall many of those. Certainly, um, not where I lived, and certainly not in Brighton. There may have been some in London, but I don't. I honestly don't recall them.
yeah,
I did
yeah.
used to teach people of an evening,
Right.
in the
I took
store, but
classes, but
when the
I
shop
don't
was
remember
closed.
us
But
getting together to just socially knit. Sorry, I
no,
interrupted, but I don't remember
no,
us just getting together
no,
in a yarn store to socially knit. Early on,
no.
I was, relearning how to knit and starting to really knit a lot. Now they want you in the store more
Yeah,
because you buy.
of
So
course, of
they
course.
figured that out, and
Yeah,
not just this once a week, once a year you take a class. We want you here all the time, all
Yeah.
the time, as much as you can.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I mean, I wish I'd almost thought of that really then, but it just wasn't the norm. So I doubt that we would. Yeah, I don't know if that would have been
Yeah,
got
no.
traction, but and to be honest, by the time I'd done 6 days a week in my shop, I was pretty tired
Oh,
anyway.
absolutely, absolutely.
So
I don't know how some of them do it now when
no,
they have weekend hours and night hours, and
yeah,
they just have a couple of employees to cover all of that. Yeah,
yeah.
it's people ask me all the time, why didn't you ever open a yarn store? Because you would never get to knit.
Well,
Like,
that's the thing. Funny you should say that because I wanted to knit everything myself. And certainly when I did a new design, of course I did like samples, but then I actually realized this wasn't possible. I just couldn't knit it all myself.
no,
And we were taking orders for garments, and I had to recruit a number of knitters. Um, and that was an interesting surprise to me that people would come and say, well, I'd really like to have that. I want it in another color. Fine. And then would you like, do you want to know? Oh no, I don't knit. And well, we can teach you. No, I don't really want to knit. But I would like that. Okay. So the actual knitted garment became, an important part of our sales. And I'm grateful for that, very grateful. But I realized very quickly I couldn't knit them all. There's no
no,
way I could knit them all and run the
no.
shop and all the rest of
Yeah,
it. So I started to recruit knitters, and I found that the best knitters were the ones that really loved doing it. And I would have them come into the shop, and I'd want to see what they'd knitted. And I kind of, I had to interview them almost. And
right. Oh, for sure.
and it was really, and I did pay well because I wanted good results. But my best knitters were the ones that did it for the sheer love of doing it, and they weren't many of them were older ladies, but not all by any means. But the best knitters were really the ones that just loved doing it. And they would say, I can't, the children don't want any more sweaters. My husband doesn't need anything more. I just love doing it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
bring it on, sort of thing.
yeah.
And
Perfect. Plus,
yeah,
I don't think we had that mentality then that it would be okay to have 40, 50, 60 sweaters that some knitters have now after,
yeah,
10 years of knitting. We just have, it's that kind of overconsumption, right?
yes,
Like
yes,
back then, if you knit a few that fit well and you wore them a lot, that's kind of what
that was it.
you just wore
Yeah,
them all. And I can't go an entire winter here in Minnesota and wear everything that I've knit. I have
right,
more than I could possibly wear,
right.
and so I have to give to my mom and other people if I want to continue to knit things.
Yes,
So
yes,
I mean, some things do go out of style, but they still fit,
sure.
so I could still wear them. But I think years ago when I first started, it would have been insane to think that you might knit 8 sweaters in a year, and
Yeah,
you just wouldn't have done that. It just
no.
wouldn't have, or to knit socks over and over and over again, so you have an entire drawer full that you
Yeah.
could never wear out, right? That people who are sock knitters, they're just knitting socks,
Oh
socks,
yeah,
socks, socks,
yeah.
socks, socks for and because that's their favorite
That's
thing.
their
That's
favorite
not me,
thing.
but
No, no, not
but they
me.
have 40 or 50 pair, right? And
Mm,
that they just continue to knit socks. And I think that's a completely different kind of attitude that we didn't have
sure.
before. So how long did you have the store?
I had it for around 5 years. I had it for around 5 years. Um, so, and I loved doing it. I really did. But there were two factors. It was taken up. I could never go on vacation.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I I loved doing it, but it was me really. And then, I had help at the weekends that friends came down. I had a lot of visitors, especially being in a seaside town, which was wonderful. And that my very good friends that would come, my sister-in-law would come down on a Saturday. My brother would come down and clean out the vacuum cleaner because it would get clogged up with when we'd wound the yarn off. And So he
Sure.
would have to fix things and do things, and my sister-in-law would help me in the shop, and it was lovely. But I never got the chance to go on vacation, and I never really had a full weekend. Christmas was
Yeah.
amazing because we had,
Yeah.
closed the shop for 4 or 5 days. And where we were, that was quite typical that people
Yeah.
would do that. But there were two things. I could see that there was a recession coming. You had it here in the States, and the way things worked there, if you had the recession, Britain followed, a year or so later. And what I found was that people were, even my knitters, my avid knitters that would come in every month, they maybe weren't coming in quite so often, or they weren't spending as much.
Yeah.
And then we started to get the first of our not so cold winters, when,
Hmm.
and maybe if people aren't knitting in the summer, they certainly are in the winter, but it needs to be cold. And we were getting very mild winters. So it was like, yeah, okay. So I was thinking, and then two ladies came in and said, I don't know if you're ever thinking of selling your shop, but we would love to have a shop here. And it was as if kind of I really didn't want to let it go, but I had to really think about it.
Yeah.
And like, okay, well, maybe this is one door closing and another door opening. So they made me an offer which really I couldn't refuse. So
Yeah.
I it was like giving away your firstborn. I mean,
Oh,
no, it's not like that, but it was
no, but
painful. It was
oh, for
painful.
sure. No,
Yeah.
yeah. And so then did you stay in Brighton or did you move back to London?
I stayed in Brighton for a few more years. Yes,
Yeah.
I did. But I
Yeah.
did start commuting. I was commuting to London at one time. And then
Okay.
I and then and because it was actually a pretty decent commute. I mean, 50 miles, but it was a fast train, and a
Yeah.
lot of people did that commute. So
Yes.
much so that Christmas time there was the party train. There was a particular train at 6:05 from Victoria Station that would it was a party train, the last kind of
Yep.
Friday before
Yeah.
Christmas. That was
Yeah.
very entertaining.
Yeah.
So that was fun. And you got to know actually make friends with people on the train, which was fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I moved back to the suburbs of London at that time. Yeah.
Okay, so let's jump forward in time because I think
Yes.
this is one of the first things you and I talked about is that you told me that you were teaching knitting during the pandemic because people were home and needing to wanting to craft and learn how to knit, and you started teaching on Facebook
I did.
and you started a little company, Knitter
Knitter
Matters,
Matters, yes,
Knitter
Knitter Matters.
Matters, and so let's talk about that because I found that
Sure.
fascinating too.
Well, yeah, I mean, the pandemic happened, and you could, yeah, I was, still knitting even when I was in Florida. And I was just sitting on the sofa one evening as, things started to close down, and, we were all being told that we should do this and do that. Um, and I was just sitting there knitting. And, those times where you sort of, you say something before you've really fully thought it through. And I said to my husband, there must be a whole load of people out there just going crazy that they have to work from home, and they're not used to it. I'm going to teach people. First I said I had an idea, and I saw that frightened look from my husband, like, what's this going to be? And I said, there's all these people sort of must be going crazy. I'm going to teach people how to knit. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm thinking maybe I could do it on Facebook. And he said, "Oh, great idea. How are you going to do it? Let's do it." So that was sort of the Thursday evening. And then by the following Tuesday, I was doing the first one. And I didn't really know if I was talking to myself in Facebook land. I knew how to do a Facebook Live because a friend of mine had been doing something in a completely unrelated field. So I knew how to do a Facebook Live, but I had no clue about anything else. So my husband was manning the iPad and filming me. Um, and Yeah, that's how it started. And at first I thought, well, I don't know if anyone's watching this, but oddly enough, people were.
Yeah.
And so it went from there. And then what I did do was every time I'd done an episode, I uploaded it to YouTube. which I was glad about, because now in this past year or so, Facebook are only keeping videos on there for 30 days. So
Yeah.
I started doing that. And what was so interesting, Cori, and I'm sure you know this better than I, but I learned so much from people that were watching. So
Oh,
for example, when I did the first kind of, this is how you do a knit stitch, this is how you do a pole stitch, whatever it might have been, but literally the first couple of episodes, a lady text me or wrote and said, do you think you could have two different color needles? Because I'm having trouble identifying. And it's like, I'd never even thought to do that. And then, of course, I was on a quest to find different color needles. But the problem was, yes, you could find lots of different color needles, but they would be one color for one size. I
yeah.
couldn't get, say, two size 7 needles in different colors. So in the end, I ended up getting a pair of kitty needles. One was red, one was blue, with little kitty heads on the ends. Did the job perfectly. What, it never. Why didn't I think of that myself? But
Yeah.
I just hadn't. So that was really very insightful to me, that when people ask questions, I love it, because it makes me better at
Yeah.
doing those things.
So could you be interactive in the moment?
Yes.
Because were you recording them, but were you doing it live as well?
I was doing it live.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So people could tune in at a certain time.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
They tune in at. We started doing it at lunch times, and then as the world started going back to work, we moved it to the evening, and which didn't please some of my UK friends, because the lunchtime one was great for them because it was while they were cooking dinner or just settling down with a cup of tea or something. Whereas doing it in the evening, it was kind of midnight for them. But then the replay was there the next day.
Yes,
And they said,
yeah.
we like to watch it live, but that's okay. But being interactive, yes, I could do that. But here was my issue with that. To have done that really well, I needed a second person, maybe, because there's a bit of a delay.
Yep.
Not much of one, but I also needed to have either an iPhone there or an iPad, and to see who was popping up.
Yep.
So sometimes I would catch people and be able to say, "Oh, hi, Cori, nice to see you," or answer their question. But it became, if you're trying to make sure you're in the right, your hands are in the right place, you're demonstrating the right thing, then you're also trying to keep an eye open here for somebody asking a question. That became a bit difficult. So what I would do, I would say to people, please, if I catch your question while it's coming up, I'll obviously answer it. But if not, I'll answer it afterwards, because I would always look through afterwards, and then the questions would be there.
But that's true of me when I teach on Zoom now. Sometimes you're in the flow and you're trying to teach something, and then the chat's going. And so I do like it when they have a monitor to monitor the chat and say, hey, you have a question, and to say it out loud. So a lot of times now on Zoom, I just have the people unmute themselves and blurt the question out so that I'm not because
trying to keep up with it.
It's nice to do it in the moment, because you're on the thing and they might be struggling or whatever. But it is still hard. I still don't love teaching online on Zoom. Still, I am a much better in person. I try to tell the Zoom people that.
Yeah.
So much better in person. But but if for people who I'll never get to their area, or they want to take a particular class, it's the best option that I have, for sure.
It always sent my stress levels up higher than they probably should be, because there was always that thing, I've got to, if you keep quiet for what is only a couple of seconds, it seems like forever, doesn't it? Or something, suddenly your mind goes blank. It seems like minutes, and it's really not. But there is that awful, my mind's gone completely blank. What was I going to do next? Or a needle would go flying across the room, or sometimes I do remember quite early on, it was fine when my husband was there with the iPad, but I couldn't rely on him all the time, because he had things to do. So there was I had to learn ways of sort of moving the thing, and some of them are a bit clunky, but I also then had to check that my hands were in the right place. Once I'd moved the camera, where are my hands? And of course, you're doing this, and then you're looking up and you're thinking, oh, I'm off the edge. So at one point, I used dressmakers tape, very fine tape where they mark it on a mannequin where the lines are to go.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is great. I mark out my area where my hands have to be, so I know at any time, as long as my hands are there, it's in shot. Well, that was great until what I was knitting or demonstrating started to peel the tape off, and then I ended up with tape all over my knitting. It's like, oh, and I thought that was such a good idea. But people didn't seem to mind when, I messed up, or if there was almost that, not that they were happy that you made a mistake, but they're with you. They're not, they understand that it's live, things go wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. That just happened to me.
Yeah.
I was just doing a video tutorial for a new pattern that's coming out, and I was editing it this morning, and at one point my hands were just kind of eking off further and further to the side, and I went and enlarged it, but they're still off to the side, and I'm like, I'm not going back to redo this whole thing. It's one section of one little, it was a 10-minute video tutorial, and it's about 20 seconds before I realized that I needed to scoot them back over, but I was talking, so I didn't want to cut it. But people, I don't think people will be upset about that. I mean, I don't think I'm going to get a negative comment about that. So how long did you teach on Facebook?
Well, I did it for 4 years. So 4 years. And the only reason so at first I was doing it every week, and that became quite onerous. And I fell foul of I've got to pack a lot in, which actually, I made a rod for my own back, because I could have split those up easily into shorter segments. And with hindsight, that would have been a better thing to do. Yeah. But I felt, I've got to show people a lot in half an hour. And of course, if you're preparing samples to show them what you're going to do, that takes an awful lot of time beforehand. So I found it quite onerous to do it every week, and then I went to every other week, and then I ended I sort of put it on hold for a while. I had a breast cancer diagnosis in 2022, and all is good, but while I was having surgery and things like that, I wasn't sure, I didn't want the added stress of sort of having to do that, so I had a bit of a break, and then I thought, well, maybe I just don't do it so frequently, because what I found was people were still watching the YouTube videos, because not everybody's going to be able to watch it live, and you don't know if you want to watch something unless it's something you want to learn necessarily. So there's over 100 videos there. I haven't done an actual Facebook Live for a little while, but I am rethinking. I do want to get back to doing it again, but I am going to change the concept of it. How that will be, I'm not sure yet, but I do get people saying, oh, we missed the Facebook Lives. So,
well, I do think we have to continue to kind of reinvent, because it gets old. Like I did my podcast for 6 years, me talking to the screen, and then I was getting bored, and I only do it every other week, and it's still a little onerous. Like there are still some second weeks that I get to and I say, I don't have enough content, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough energy, or whatever, which is why I started adding, having a second person to talk to occasionally is so nice. Just like, it's not just me talking about my knitting and my stuff, and and so I do think you kind of have to reinvent. You cannot keep doing the same thing forever, even if you have new content to give, right? And eventually I would like to put some of my classes online, but that would take a bigger setup than what I have right now, right? Like then I think you start getting in a little bit more professionalism and better cameras, and I'm still talking to my iPad. Your content was free, correct?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
And mine too. Like my podcast is free. I do have a Patreon community that are so supportive, and I offer them special items, and they pay monthly. And we have times that we knit together, and we have a book club, and I, do some things, but most of my content is just still out there for free. And so there's a big part of me that says, you can't complain. Right.
Well, and I
my
think
viewers can't complain if I'm giving it to you for free, and you can turn it off at any given time if the subject doesn't interest you. I'm just going to say that now I have hitched Cheryl to my star, my little rising star that's been rising a little bit over the last few years, where I'm getting these bigger teaching gigs. And I said, Cheryl, you have a background in being a yarn store owner and teaching and knitting and designing. Like, you should be, going down this path with me. So Cheryl is going to be teaching at Yarn Fest.
Yes, and I'm thrilled to bits. And thank you again, Cori, for making that introduction. I couldn't be more thrilled.
Now Cheryl and I are going to become a team, and we're going to just travel together.
Yay!
To apply. And so I introduced her, and to Sandy Rosner, who was on the podcast. I had Sandy on the podcast, and she talked about her multiple jobs that she does in the knitting industry. And she owned a yarn store in California for about 5 years. So I introduced her to Sandy because Sandy is the educational director for Yarn Fest, and she helps set up all the teacher contracts and those kinds of things. And they have just now recently asked me to teach on their Yarn Fest at Home platform, where they set up a class or two on Zoom, and Sandy comes on with you and makes sure your tech is good, and then you get to teach. So I've been kind of plugging this Yarn Fest following for people, just to say, hey, Interweave is really trying hard to still have an education platform for knitters out there, either knitters at home or knitters in a location where they have a big venue and they have different vendors come in. In the past, they have had Bead Fest and Quilt Fest and Knit Fest, and what else have they done? One other jewelry. Anyway, but they bring in multiple groups of people, and so sometimes the vendor market is not just yarn and knitting. That's just what I'm trying to say. So sometimes the vendor market in Pennsylvania has been really heavy beads the last couple of years, like almost all beads. Just a couple of knitting vendors, but in Estes Park, where they're moving it from Loveland, which is where they've had it the last few years, in a beautiful event center, which I absolutely love, but is quite a ways from the airport and not as convenient for people. And the event center was attached to the hotel, which was lovely, but it's very expensive for them to have it there. Now they've moved us up into the hills. We're going to go up to Estes Park, where there is an event center, but it's not attached to the hotel. So they're separated a little bit. But yeah, so we'll both be at Estes Park in April. So that's another reason that I wanted to have Cheryl. She and I have been doing quite a bit of talking and going back and forth on things, but I wanted to make sure that I had you on the podcast. Did you bring some favorite knits that we could
did?
share?
Yes,
Good. Because I think that's what some people really tune in for, is some inspiration.
Right. Okay. So the one that I'm wearing, this is can you see the whole thing? Because
no.
Okay. So let me just done it. So
there we go. Yeah.
It's by Melissa Leapman. I pinned it so it wouldn't keep flapping about. But let me show you the
my
shape.
bifocals.
Yeah. It's so it's kind of an offset triangle. It's not.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah, but it's nice because you can, as I was wearing, you can show that nice V bit there and just bring this other piece round to the front.
Yep.
And this is mosaic.
Yeah,
stitch, and
it's
I
really
love
graphic.
I did one in a sort of mustard and blue, in a slightly thicker yarn, and I liked it, but it came out bigger than I wanted. It was more like a shawl. But I love this. I did this in a very light fingering, a very light fingering, and it's a bit smaller, which I wanted because I wanted it as a neck wrap. I wanted it as a cowl, but I love how the sort of the striking design of it. So this
Yeah,
is
because
kind of,
you've got like a chevron and then stripes, which is
yes.
really
And it's a
fun
really
together.
nice, it's a nice one to do. And then it's just easy garter stripes, which I really like this one. So it's called Honky Tonk by Melissa Leapman. Um, would you like to see some other things?
Yes, we would.
Yeah, this one is not blocked yet, so there's ends hanging everywhere. This is I Am Dragon. This is a fade. I did three different kind of colors of the same yarn, and they're like dragon scales. And I put then there's beads as well.
Is it like 3D?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it took a long time, but it was quite fun to do. So it's like 3D. I've got to block it, and I know the blocking process is going to be enormous because there's all these little kind of ears around the
Yeah,
side that have
yeah.
got to be blocked in. And
And
then
who designed that?
let me give you her name because I wrote that down because I knew I'd forget. It's called I Am Dragon 3 by Alexandra Davidoff.
Okay.
She's famous for these sort of dragon scale things.
Okay.
And then I'm going to put big tassels on the end. So it'll
Can you
be,
hold just a little section up really close to your camera
yes. Let
so
me
we
go
can
with,
just try to see just a little bit of it?
let me take you up to the lighter section.
Oh yeah, oh, perfect. There we go.
So, and then eventually when it's done, I'll have big tassels on the end so
Yeah,
that
that's
when it
that's what
wraps
I have
around,
today.
yeah, yeah, exactly like that.
It weighs down so nicely. It is cold, bitterly cold and windy here. And so
Right.
I love having something wrapped
I
up.
do too. Yeah. So this one's got to be blocked, but it was quite fun to do. Um, and I do love towels and things because I don't always want the full weight of a sweater or a cardigan, especially when I'm at home. But I want something around my neck.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
this one, let me take this off. Again, I wore just plain black so I could sort of show the colors of. This is a favorite of mine. I did this some while ago, um, and it's called Winter Mists Wrap. It was in a very fine lace weight. Let me.
Oh, there we go. Yep.
So it's a cable that sort of it travels a bit, and
Yeah.
but
Is
the
it
the
is it kind of ribbed?
yeah, it's a sort
Looks
of
like it's a little ribbed. Yeah. And the
yes, and then
cables cross.
the
Yeah.
cables are at the side as well, so you get that nice curvy
Yeah.
edge, and it's
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
reversible, which is nice.
And it's in one of Cori's favorite colors,
Oh
raspberry.
yeah, there you go, mine too. So I loved this. I was going to do it initially in black, and I'm glad I didn't because I think I might never have finished it because it was one of those, although it was enjoyable to knit, it took forever. It took forever, and it was in a
Yeah.
very fine yarn, but I do love it. I couldn't get the black yarn in the how I wanted it. So, I resorted to my favorite color, one of my
Yeah. No,
favorite
it's
colors.
it's
So
lovely.
I'm very glad I did that. I have here. There's a. This is I love this. I've done this several times as gift. This is a shawl. This is called Lace Shawl, and it's by Candice Eisner Strick.
Strict. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, and it's a center panel that you do first. A center panel that you do first. And I added beads to this one
So pretty.
because I'd done this one several times. And then you join from the side. So you
Oh, and then
you
you work your way.
you work out like the wings. You kind of work out.
I love
Yeah,
that construction.
yeah. So you go this way for this side and then this way for that side. And then it needs a bit of careful blocking when you've done it. Otherwise you'll get pieces just sticking straight out rather than giving that V shape. But I
Yeah.
do I
Yeah.
do love this one. I've done it as gifts for people. And I just love that center panel thing. I think it's so pretty.
Yeah. It's really pretty. Really pretty.
Um,
And the
and
purple is
then
lovely.
yeah, thank you. Yeah. And then again, I put beads around the edge of this one, which was a bit superfluous. But of course, once I'd started on the beads, I thought I've got to keep going. But you just get that little reflection every now and then. Um, And so I've been doing a lot of little things for people. These gloves, these
I
are a
just
favorite
love
of
a
mine.
quick project. I just love a
Yeah,
quick project sometimes.
me too.
I just getting something on and off the needles.
Exactly that. Yes, because
That's a serotonin boost or something. I don't know.
it
It's just,
is, isn't it? Just
oh,
having
yes.
like a little quick one. And um, my husband's sister really liked these. I've done a few pairs for her. It's these are Susie Rogers reading mitts. Such
Oh,
an
that
easy
is
knit.
a great pattern.
I
I have
love
knit
that
that
pattern. I love
several
it.
times. I
Yes,
love
I've
that
done it
pattern.
about 4 times now. Um, and then the other thing, yeah, on the other mannequin,
Yep.
there's I love cows and little neck wraps. This is called Bay Cow
Oh,
um
yeah. You
by
must be a
Remy.
little bit of a fan of mosaic.
I do like that. Yeah, this was
Yeah.
fun to do. Yeah, this was really nice to do.
Yeah.
Um, this one, this was pretty interesting too. This is again a bit dragon scale, not by the same designer, but you've got that same,
Yep.
you can see it's
Yeah, because
exactly
you
the
have
same
some
idea.
dimension to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a fun one because it's a bit wider, so you can, and the way when you cast on, you as you start doing the scales, it pulls it up, so you get this nice kind of scalloped edge almost, which I
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
like. But that's a fun one to do. And I've done,
And do you
yeah, I've
have the
done
name of that one?
this one, yes. Now this was, I'm sure you,
I'm gonna try to remember to put the names of each one down below so
and I'll give you the details afterwards.
people know the spelling. Yeah.
Sure. This one was by Susan Lawrence.
Okay.
She doesn't give it a name. I'm pretty sure it's up there on Ravelry.
Yeah.
This was a lady that had a yarn shop in Florida,
Okay.
and she designed this, but I'm pretty sure it's on Ravelry.
Yeah.
But Susan Lawrence designed that, and
Okay.
it's with 2 yarns. It's a kid mohair, and then I think it's fiber. Oh no, it's a shibui yarn.
Okay.
Fingering
Okay.
on
Oh,
that
they're
one.
gone now. That's so sad.
That's right. Yes, I know. Their yarns
Shibui.
were so beautiful.
I
Shibui, yeah.
know. I know.
Yeah. So, and I'm what's on my needles at the moment, my big project is my poor husband who has
Oh,
supported
his
me so much.
sweater.
His sweater, yes. Finally getting there with the sleeves. I'm on the sleeves now. But
Yes, you
this
have to finish that so he can wear that this winter.
I know. Yeah, I'm almost there. This is a lovely yarn by Noro. That I'm doing it in.
Hold that up closer so people can see
So
the color palette. Yeah. So it's
yeah,
like a color changing. Turn that ball so we see the top.
yeah,
Yeah. There you go. So you can kind of see it's a color changing, which you were
yes,
kind of bummed about because he picked it, but it's kind of distorting
yeah,
some of your pretty knitting.
yeah,
Right. Like you can still tell that it's textured, but with the striping that it did,
yeah.
you think it would have looked better in a more of a solid. That's
Well,
kind of what you told me. I
yes,
mean, but
yeah.
if you have someone who decides that they like a color
Well,
palette,
that's
you
it.
got, like my husband too. I knit him a whole sweater in kind of a green and he never wore it. And so I gave it to a yarn dyer and they dyed it dark for me. I said,
Oh
I don't
wow,
care what color it comes back, just throw it in the pot at the end of the day. But he will
really?
not wear this because he thinks it's too bright,
Okay.
and so now he has a kind of a brown, gray, black, it's hideous color, but
But he wears it.
yeah, because he's not a bright, and I think
Right.
he's a little colorblind with blue greens, and
Oh,
so
maybe.
I'll
Yes.
say to him, no, he'll say, just can I wear this with this? And I'll be like, and over the years I've kind of figured out that I don't think he sees greens the way everyone else sees greens. And
Yeah.
how do you have that conversation and compare what you
Yeah.
see to what someone else sees? And I thought it was a lovely, it was not a dark green, but I thought it was a lovely green. And he just was not, he just thought it
Yeah.
was way too much for him. And
Yeah.
so I had someone throw
That
it
was,
in a
yeah, that was
pot,
a good idea. What a good idea. I
and
don't
just
think I'd have
say
thought to
if
do
it can
that.
come back. It was a superwash merino, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
And I just said, if if he'll wear it. I probably would have worn it in the green, so I probably could have just kept it for myself. But yeah.
My father had that blue-green deficiency. He was colorblind, but it was difficult. It was tricky because he would, how do you just know what somebody else sees? And it was only he very proudly went out one day and bought himself a pair of shoes which he thought were a kind of gray color, and they turned out to be green. So to him they were gray. But he had trouble with, he could see bright colors and certainly yellows, but which yellow was a favorite color, and probably because that was the one that he could see so well. That kind of murky, the greens and the blues would get a bit confusing. But I mean, he would see it as he saw it, and he liked it or he didn't. So But no, the only thing with this is, I think even my husband, he liked the stitch pattern. He liked that kind of sort of offset cable. But when he saw it knitted up in this, he was like, we probably didn't need to have the pattern as well. No, we didn't, but never mind. He likes it, and he can't wait for me to finish it.
And easier to knit it than if he chose black.
Oh gosh, yes. I mean, it is fun actually, as you see the transition.
It's always fun to knit with color changing.
Yeah, it is actually, and it's not such a harsh contrast. It's not like it's completely goes from one color to the other.
Nice, they're muted. For sure.
So anyway, he loves it, and we finally
Cheryl, I want to thank you so much for your time. This has been super fun. I know that the two of us just love to chat.
We do.
We can talk about all things all the time.
We really could.
That is the beauty of meeting people when you're out teaching and making some connections. I taught in Dallas, 2 gals. We had the same kind of experience. They were friends. They were laughing. We had this banter in class that was kind of happening. They came back and took another class. They wanted to take a class that was sold out. They couldn't get in. And they said, we're going to come to Minnesota. We're going to have you come down. And sure enough, she flew up for my knitting retreat in November from Dallas and came to North Dakota. And we had the best time, Teresa and I, because I had met her and we just had this connection, and it was just lovely. And I've gotten to know her a little bit, and she's kind of a part-time realtor in the Texas area. Not really from the Dallas area. She's west more, but that is a benefit of getting out there and meeting people and getting filled up with other people's stories and their road to knitting, and kind of their passion around the thing that you also love. You start out with that same connection because you're all at an event together. So this has just been really fun for me. I know people are going to love listening to your story and what you have to say and your experiences, because I think we're all in the US a little, enamored with the accent and thinking of the UK and London, and as are people elsewhere about the US, right?
Of course,
I just think that that's a lot of fun. So thank you so much for your time.
It's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I couldn't be happier. Thank you.
All right, we're going to say goodbye.
Yeah. Bye, friends.